Welcome to the GameDay Playbook, presented by FanFood, a discussion around how leaders are transforming the sports and live entertainment industry by leveraging technology to enhance the fan experience and operate game day more efficiently. I'm your host, Rob Cressy, and joining me today is Brad Friedman, founder and CEO at Fanserv. Brad, super excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, likewise, Rob. I think you had me at bacon, so excited to be here.
See, it's always a great foundation when someone says you had me at bacon. I'm like, congratulations, you are my type of person.
Absolutely.
Can you give a quick overview on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, founder and CEO at Fanserv, and Fanserv is actually the pivot within the pivot of a startup that began with team apps, and so you're working directly with some NHL and NBA teams to develop the mobile app. And this was about 10 years ago now, so the 10-year startup. But we pivoted into ad tech, and Fanserv is a live ad server. We use sports data and audience data to deliver a better ad. Something that we saw from a team perspective and in the market that we thought that we could improve on. That was the problem that we were going after, and I'm excited to say after a few years of pursuing that and growing that side of the business, we're making some traction and just excited about what's next.
What we're going to talk about on today's show is engaging fans. But before we do so, the conversation we were having before we started to record was straight fire. And I think it actually can provide a lot of value for someone by looking at both your journey and my journey. And what we talked about was the path to success is not linear. It's a roller coaster. And we have to be disciplined and consistent in what we do. And when we do, that's when we're most in flow and have the best opportunities to succeed. And I want to see if you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I call it the 1,700 things I've learned as a startup. But again, that path from A to B is never a straight line. And being disciplined, being consistent, not getting too high, not getting too low, are just sort of invaluable traits that you learn, I think, over time. Certainly things that you read about and if you pay attention to, I don't know whether it's like a Tim Ferriss entrepreneurial type or even the best in class CEOs, it's that same message that you hear over and over again. And until you, for me at least, right, until I lived it, until I saw either the ramifications of getting too low or the same ramifications of getting too high, you just you sort of find that even keel, one foot in front of the other, and that marathon mentality, I think, has certainly helped me a lot in this journey.
And I think it's something that you can hear and read and see, but you have to live through action. And it's something, as I look at my journey over the last 7 years, that what I did is I knew it was going to be a roller coaster ahead of me. And I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that I had to control the things that I could control. So what I did is I was like, all right, let me reverse engineer the success habits and mindsets of the most successful people out there. The CEOs, the people who have built businesses that I want to be like. And then from that, I have to take action on it, because sometimes you have to hear something 800 times before you're like, oh, maybe I should get up early and read or meditate or work out before it finally hits you. But I think that's the key to consistency and discipline is there's so much noise out there of do this, do this, do this. But until you start actually living in action for some of these things, and I know a lot of what we're going to talk about, I hope that people take action on the things they hear on these podcasts, because we do this to help others.
Definitely. And not beat yourself up for not getting going right away. Like you said, like you sometimes you have to hear something 800 times before you really get it, before you sort of like, and whether it's with, starts and stops, or whether it's, just this aha moment, of, I get it internally now. I understand what that means. like, don't beat yourself up over it, because we're all on this journey, right? And that's one thing that, again, that I found, it's not smarts that wins the game. It's not talent necessarily that wins the game. It's the heart and effort, and to your point about taking action, that, inevitably wins the game. And so keep at it. And, the next day is always a new day. And that, like I said, is helped tremendously just in this journey as a startup, where, a lot of times, whether it's, cash flow or clientele or product, or, things not just going the way that you expected them to go, to have, again, that sort of, okay, tomorrow's a new day. Let's, get after it. Let's keep going. That those are the things I said that I feel like are the advantages in life, and the things that, really pay the tremendous amount of dividends. You just as an internal sort of mechanism of measurement.
And what has helped you learn that self-confidence? Because it's not an easy thing, because comfort is comfortable. But I always like to say, get comfortable being uncomfortable and walking towards the fire. But guess what? It is not easy when you're like, oh, let me take 5 minutes of cold showers for a month straight and see how that feels. But guess what? That hardens you to get used to discomfort. But you mentioned self-confidence in having a vision. And what can you sort of share with us based on your journey that might be able to help us?
Yeah. It comes, some completely unexpected, right? And which is somewhat of a cliche, but it was completely unexpected, where, the things that we had been working on as a team for, a year and a half, didn't seem to, be getting traction in the market. Every conversation that we were having, whether it was a potential customer or a potential investor, whoever we were chatting with was, we're always, that's a great idea. That's fantastic. That's interesting, which is, again, I've got a whole chapter on that's interesting. The misnomer of that's interesting for people that say that. But, we were getting such positive feedback, but we weren't really getting traction in the market. And, I think that it was, like I said, it was about a year and a half, almost 2 years into it, where, I had that aha moment of, wow, all this effort that we've put into the product, all of this effort that we've, put into the marketplace, really has, we are distinguished and we are differentiated, and nobody else has been able to do what we're doing. And I think it was a bigger company that had 2 years earlier said, oh, we'll build this out, and then came back to me after having not built it out and said, hey, can we use you guys? And was like, oh yeah, of course, that's great. We'd love to help you out. So it's, those types of things that, along the way, again, that just, you have these daily aphorisms of, let's go, one foot in front of the other, build it better and keep going. But, to have that sort of realization was a huge moment of, all right, we've got something, and let's keep at it. And those are the things, again, that I think are like power boosts in your daily.
Yeah. And for me, I'm very disciplined and routine oriented, because I want to be in control of what I can be in control of. So knowing, how do you build self-confidence? Well, the way you build self-confidence is staying aligned to your goals. So I write down my goals twice a day and read them. I read something that I created that has the consistency to my dreams, but at the same time, gratitude and journaling and these things to build this positive mindset that you have. Because I truly believe that having a positive mindset is one of the biggest things you can do towards success, because of what it'll do for your relationships, for your energy, plus your own self-confidence, in the way that you can say, listen, let me create a process that allows me to boot myself up every morning, that says, no matter what happened yesterday and what monsters may lie ahead today, I'm going to say, you know what? Boom, here's the things that I'm grateful for. Here's the things that I'm going after now. Boom, let's go kick ass.
I love that. And again, that's something, just in the short time that we've been chatting and connected, like, that is inspiration. I'm not disciplined. admittedly, like I lack in the discipline, and it's something that, you know, I am constantly trying in this process of getting better to be, you know, more mindful of, and to work on, and to, you know, add things to sort of the daily routine. I do have a schedule, and then I do work on things that, you know, I think like that I'm good at, that I know I'm good at, and I'm good at this staying positive, like you said, attitude is gratitude, 100%, you know, and that's all the way down to the family, you know, every day is attitude is gratitude, forgiving, you know, people make mistakes. I make mistakes, like having that sort of, we're all in this together mindset has certainly helped quite a bit. So there are a few of those, like, you know, if that list is maybe, you know, 10 things that you want to do, I know that I do 3 or 4 really well, and I know that there are probably, you know, 6 or 7 that I'm in need of working on, that I'm aware of. But, you know, again, it doesn't happen. Those things don't happen overnight.
Exactly. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is these fundamentals are just as important to business and being forward thinking and being successful as everything that we're going to talk about being forward thinking with technology and engaging fans. So let's start with this about the evolution of engaging fans and the changing fan, because the way that fans are marketed to or engaged has changed from pre-internet to social to where we are now. So give some insight in sort of your mindset on the evolving fan.
Yeah, it's a great transition because, you know, where we started was with the, like I said, the mobile app, team apps. And so this was the early days. We actually built an app. We built a BlackBerry app, if you could believe, back in the day, right before it went off the cliff. But we built an app, and you know, I tell this story all the time. The first season that we had it, the team president would walk around, and there was no Wi-Fi in the building. So you talk about fan experience on the app. Here we have this mobile app, you know, Apple, Android, everything's starting to take off. That piece of fan engagement was starting to solidify, but it wouldn't work in the arena. And so the team president would walk by every night, look at me, look down at his phone, and just sort of shake his head and walk off, you know, in another direction. Wouldn't say anything, just look at his phone and sort of shake his head and discuss. Well, at the end of the year, we looked at the stats, and wouldn't you believe it that, you know, the stats showed raising water level, retention rate was through the roof. You know, unlike, you know, most apps that were out there, we had repeat users were at 80%. The, you know, the spikes during game day are still true today. I mean, it's part of the reason why we've built what we've built, you know, with live sports engagement, because that is where, you know, 80% of your traffic's coming from. And so, you know, to go from, you know, from a technology standpoint where we were ahead of the curve maybe on, you know, infrastructure or, you know, user behavior, but we still had this fan engagement that propelled us to where we're at today. I mean, this is, like I said, one of those fundamentals where fan interest and engagement is massive. And that's the opportunity that I think we're all chasing from, you know, whether it's you're a brand or a marketer or, you know, on the team side as a publisher. Like those are that engagement is still, you know, true today. And I think what, you know, again, getting back to this sort of the slow path of adoption, you know, the things that where people are comfortable is still selling sponsorship. Sponsorship sales hasn't changed in the 10 years that I've been in the business, and you know, the 20 years that I've been doing research on it, right? You're still selling the boxes, you're still selling the broadcast, you're still selling, you know, the vanity play with your name at the arena. Like those are the things that really haven't changed, because they haven't had to, because those salespeople haven't had to be uncomfortable in the market. And it's not this sort of the year of mobile, but I think that those times are changing. Like it does feel different, I'd say, in the last couple of years with streaming and cord cutting, with the new arenas that you know have popped up, and sort of how they're designed around, you know, whether it's that millennial next generation fan or the fluid fan, you know, depending on your point of view. But there's certainly a different atmosphere in arenas that have allowed, and I think forced the hand of some of those, you know, sales teams to reconsider how they're packaging their inventory. And that for us is a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to experience, where we have so many choices for what we do with our time and money, and what is a sporting event going to do to elevate said experience. And at the same time, it's a great thing that you said about there was no Wi-Fi in the arenas, because guess what? Numerous times on this podcast, we have talked about one of the biggest challenges there is the lack of Wi-Fi connectivity in arenas. Like, I still go to events right now and I can't get on Instagram to share a story of during the game. And that is just a huge red flag of like, how is that possible? And how are people supposed to sell sponsorships into something when my mind immediately says, listen, if you're going to be selling a sponsorship, you need to integrate online and offline. And I want to do this in an activation that actually hits home, because so much of sponsorship is vanity. Like, I think of people who sell sponsorships for conferences and they're like, we'll put your banner up somewhere in the conference and then throw your logo in the booklet that we have. And I'm like, that is trash. You know how many times I have got a brand relationship be like, man, did you see that brand logo in the book? No, you want something that stands out, and you can do so much more with less when you don't have more. When you don't have these gigantic budgets, you say, all right, if we want to make our name in the market, what do? You've got to be creative. You've got to be more one-to-one, because we know what actually works or what moves the needle. And in so many of these selling sponsorships, it is just vanity and large, and the accountability just isn't there.
Right. No, and you know, it's a fundamental flaw in that sales process. And it's funny because, you know, a lot of the you know, from a programmatic perspective, like a lot of the media that's bought now is moving in this direction where, you know, even on TV side where, you know, you can buy through you can buy on the bid and you can buy on the exchange. But there's such a huge gap between where the sports industry is as a whole and, you know, where the general marketplace is. And that gap is just because, again, I think it's because of being comfortable and not having to change. There's no rush to change, and there's no real from either the brands that have been involved with sports for so long, whether that's Pepsi, Budweiser, you know, Gatorade, all those types of blue collar brands, or like the sales teams. And so, but again, the fans, the audience are the ones that are changing that now, right? Where brands are seeing, oh, I can't reach the audience that I want to in stadium as much as I'd like to, or I can't activate like I'd like to, you know, in stadium as much as I used to. And so what's next? And I think that's the, you know, again, the opportunity for us to help bridge that gap, maintaining that fan engagement, maintaining those brand standards, maintaining all of the fundamental reasons why brands are part of the sports space, right? That likability, the recall, but just, you know, furthering the best practices of, you know, what's available in media and ad technology today.
So I believe this is
that was a selfless plug. I didn't mean it to be all about
no,
that,
but because yeah. here's the unique thing that you may not know why I think it's important. My background before I started my company was digital advertising sales. So I saw early internet up to social in one of the reasons why I left the industry. So I'm on the publisher side. I was working for a publisher that was getting 500 million ad impressions a month. And it was like we were selling based on demographic. I was the only salesperson. And the reason why someone would come and buy from us is because we could hit the baby boomer demographic. But then guess what happened? Everything started to go from desktop to mobile. So I was watching our ad inventory shrink. And then here comes programmatic. And for those who don't know what programmatic is, it's really the ability to aggregate audience across the entire internet and be able to target it however you want. So now me, the publisher sales guy, when the number one thing I'm selling against was the demographic that we have, now these programmatic companies are coming along saying, oh, you can buy that baby boomer demographic across the entire internet, not just this website. And guess what happened? We went from getting a $15 CPM, so cost per 1,000 impressions, all the way down to like $2.50. So the ad inventory is shrinking, the CPMs that we're getting is shrinking, and the reason why you would come to me directly as a publisher is shrinking. And I'm like, my goodness, this is not a good thing. So when you look at the entire publishing and media industry, I was so uniquely in a situation where I experienced the entire thing myself and got out before the thing crashed, because now you just start seeing publishers everywhere who are like, how do you combat this? Because we're making, let's call it, a third of the revenue that we did 1 or 2 years ago. So they're like, let's throw more high impact ad units on the websites. So now when you land on a sports website, here's a giant truck from the Toyota Tundra that goes raw, and it goes across your screen. And you're like, dude, I don't care. I want to see the score of the Clippers-Lakers game. And then you've got that. So that's not the right answer. So let's segue this into what can be done to better target these sports fans, because I believe it's important for people to understand the media side of things, because it's part of our lives every day. We don't click on banner ads. Mobile doesn't monetize very well from a display side of things. That being said, it's not going away because we all use the internet and websites on a daily basis. So the publishers have to say, how do we monetize but create a good fan experience? That's why you've seen companies like The Athletic say, hey, let's go for a subscription model. We'll go without advertising revenue, but we'll do it this way. But then on the brand side, you say, listen, all we want to do is get in front of the sports fan and say, hey, can we show you something that we think you might like because you live in Chicago and you go to Chicago Bulls websites. So we would love to let you know about this amazing Chicago Bulls hat that you might dig.
Yeah, no, you're right. It seems so simple. It's so simple. For us, where I think, again, differentiation on sports is that it's the site and context, right? Knowing, again, you're a Chicago Bulls fan because you went to the standings and you've checked tickets and you're looking for a hat. Like, again, those are easy flags to set and sort of identify, okay, we think this is a Chicago fan. And then location, right? Okay, so this is now we've got a Bulls fan and he's in Chicago. Great, right? And then again, when you look at delivery, you have so many options now on buying in this automated fashion. And so I can create a site list that, is not only mixed with sports sites that are national in scale, targeted again by location, but I can also mix in, whether it's like the Chicago Sun or Tribune, or I can mix in, local papers, local, whether it's, again, things that we think are native to Chicago. And then the last element that, again, is so critical for us is the live data, the live sports data. And so knowing, again, that there's a home game scheduled, knowing that fans are looking at, the fan behavior is that the hour or 2 hours before the game, the bars start to fill up, what hotels people are staying at, sort of the rise and fall of that, who's actually in the arena and capturing those mobile IDs, like really trying to understand, the data aspect and putting it in the context of that team targeting, because all sports are local, right? And I think that again, you've heard a lot about it and it's gotten, like with what Facebook's done, it can be out of control a little bit. And I think you're going to see this, the pendulum always swings, right? And so your point about the publisher, you went from $15 down to $2, and now it's probably back up to like 6 or 7, right? The pendulum has always swung between advertisers and publishers in this ad tech market, and now the pendulum's swinging on this data privacy side. And so you've got to be sort of really mindful of what you're accumulating as far as indicators of what that fandom is or what that fan affinity is. But again, doing that tastefully gives us the ability, I think, to, like I said, serve a better ad in the moment where it's most relevant. And that's the holy grail for what I think the digital ad space has brought. And then you partner that with your traditional brand. I'm not saying, like, Adidas just came out, which is remarkable if you think about it. They just came out to say, hey, our 2 years where we were all digital, that was a mistake. And it was, again, I don't think that anybody that, has their senses about them is saying do everything on the digital platform. Even the direct to consumer brands, Dollar Shave Club and those, even they had some TV spend, and they had, some brand campaigns that were going. And so there's if you want to think about just sort of your fundamentals, right? Your fundamentals in advertising, have a brand message, have some direct response, have a nice media mix in terms of, how you're getting that out into the general public. And of course, when you get into that digital channel, use what's available, use the best practices that are available. And if you're looking to reach a sports audience, be in the moment, right? Tell a better story. If that's the option that you have, why would you not take that, right? Why would you go and be lazy, be in your comfort zone, right? And just produce some static creative and say, here you go. And then have that, jabroni ad be the thing that represents your brand. That's not a win for anybody, just from a common sense perspective.
You know what ads drive me bananas is the stuff you see brands promote on Twitter. And I'll give you an example. So the Yankees came back from down 4-2 against the Astros in the ALCS, and a brand promoted, I believe it was like a 2-run hit that happened. So the Yankees tied up 4-4. But
Yeah.
guess when we saw this ad? 2 days ago, which was 3 days after the Yankees lost that game. So they're promoting this awesome moment of a game the Yankees lost after the fact. And
Right.
I see it all the time on Twitter, and it blows my mind because that's a conscious decision. Someone is lazy and says, ooh, let's do this. And then they move on. Me as a sports fan, I'm like, how in the world are you promoting something from a game that the team lost? I was like, there is no positive brand awareness. And if anything else, I actually believe it's a negative brand affinity, because I say this brand doesn't get it, because if this is what they're targeting to me as a sports fan, if I was a Yankees fan, I would be pissed.
Yeah, no, that's, the traditional sports model from a fan perspective is that you're most interested in your team winning, and then secondly, your rival losing, right? You're cheering against your rival almost as hard as you're cheering for your team to win. And when somebody steps on your team and sort of disrespects them in an old school way, you're just like, forget you. I totally get that. So again, if you're going to tell a story, and there's no barrier to entry on being able to tell that story. It's just being, that's almost being lazy. That's, egregious in terms of the error there. But, you tell a better story, be part of the conversation, whether it's on social platforms or whether it's in, like I said, where we sit in more of like a traditional banner and video display elements. We're just, like I said, we're trying to give our clients the ability to, to connect and, like I said, serve a better ad. And that's really, sorry, this is my undisciplined thought process, right? But getting back to some of the things that we were talking about, earlier in the podcast, it's one of the focuses that I've always had is client first. And I think if you're disciplined in that, piece of it, good things happen, right? And so, whoever that client's agency or was that didn't help them with that Twitter ad, like shame on them, right? Because you're always looking out for your clientele and doing the best by them. And that's, again, like one of those golden rules that I think is important. Sorry.
So as I wrap this up,
yeah.
Here's the thing that I want people to take away from this is when we talk about brands and agencies that are lazy, guess what? That is the reality of the marketplace. But that's where the opportunity is for each and every one of us to excel and stand out and be different by doing things the right way. No one is going to reward you for doing things the correct way, but know when you rinse and repeat day after day, doing things the correct way, you will succeed. And that is your invisible advantage.
Absolutely. No, 100%, right? Execute, rinse, wash, repeat. Those are all great idioms in terms of, that approach. And, certainly something that I think over the long term, again, your clients are going to appreciate, and they're going to, they may not come out and say, you're the best thing since sliced bread, but when they send the check for your invoice, that's when you know things are going right.
Brad, I really enjoyed this conversation. I have a feeling we could have jammed for about another hour. Where can people connect with you?
Anytime, LinkedIn, Twitter, my primaries. I don't do much else than that. LinkedIn primarily, and then of course on the site, fanserv.com, checks out, and we'd be happy to go further with anybody that wants to reach out and have a conversation.
And as always, I would love to hear from you about this episode. And here's what I want to know. Can you tell me one brand you have had a positive experience with recently, and why was it? You can hit up FanFood on Twitter at FanFood On Demand, on Instagram at FanFood App, or on LinkedIn. And as always, you can hit me up on all social media platforms at Rob Cressy.